I'm trying to think how to start this. A while back, I put on the community a post about wanting to know what it was that you guys question most, either when you first joined the community or when you first got into vampires, whether that's you identify or you are curious. And some of you were gracious enough to respond. The first one was about vampire fashion, which I don't really think there is a particular fashion. I mean, there are stereotypes, like the leather-coated, sort of punky-looking vampires, which I sometimes go for that look. It depends on my mood that day. We've got the sort of Victorian sort of looking vampires with the long skirts and the hoops under them and all the frills and ruffles and little hats, which again I go for. I don't think I fit into any particular look. I quite enjoy experimenting with it, and yes, these are my nails, except for, I think you can see with that one, it's the very tip. See where it's broken, it's been replaced. You've got that sort of look where you've got to have the fangs, which of course, I don't really need to talk much about that. Everyone knows about the whole vampire thing and fangs. You've got, I've seen quite kawaii looking vampires, like pinky, perky. So I think it's more finding what you feel comfortable in. Experiment with it, you probably have, and probably will. There are loads of websites that you can go on to find, your style of clothing. There's alternative websites, things like that you can go on to. The second one was clubs. I personally wasn't able to find any clubs as such, more vampire inclusive pubs. It's, I think it's vampires.net or something like www.vampires.net, something like that. I'll find it and put the link, obviously, in the comments. But if you go on there, if you're in the UK, it's got all the different places, and you can just click on which one it will tell you. I like to think that most places would be pretty inclusive. I don't think that they're going to turn away paying punters because of the way you look. That would be ridiculous. You're turning money away, especially with everything that is going on in the world currently, and people aren't really going out. Another one is vampires with a fear of blood, or hemophobia, and that's awful. To feel that, that would hinder you being a vampire. You can have exposure therapy. It's sort of literally hands-on facing your fear, if you like. You can try cognitive behavioural therapy. I mean, I think it's sort of, if it is something that is really affecting you day to day, you should go and see a professional, and they will probably be able to help you. You don't really have to be a sanguine vampire. You don't really need to be a blood feaster or something like that, because you do have people who do. I experimented with it, but I don't really partake in that. You have those who are emotional vampires, so the ones who feed off of people's energy and emotions and things like that. I think, again, it's finding your niche, what type of vampire you really are, not just thinking that because there's this stereotype around vampires that you have to be a bloodsucker who looks a certain way, goes certain places. I don't think that you have to really conform to that sort of thing. I mean, if you look at different folklore, there's different ways that vampires have been, drawing a blank on the word, represented. In fact, I have this amazing magazine, excuse me Max, sorry kitty, that I got, History of Vampires, and it has it all in there, all the different vampires and all the different places. It's got about different things to do with vampire culture. It's absolutely amazing. And you really don't have to sort of fit into a specific type of vampire, because there isn't really a specific type of vampire. Everyone is different. Just like you have, every cat has a personality, every dog has a personality, every person has a personality, every vampire is different. And they will have different aspects that come through. So if you are struggling to, fit into specific places like a jigsaw piece, you probably won't. But you can find the group that you most identify with, the most, I don't want to say pros, but just know that you don't have to look a certain way or behave a certain way to be a vampire. And sorry about the voice in the background, family. But if there are any more questions, then I would love to hear them, and I'll try and answer them the best that I can. I won't pretend like I know everything, because I don't think anyone knows everything about being a vampire or anything really. But I'd just like to say thank you to the people who did leave their questions, and stay safe.